Thank you for joining our webinar on model-based definition for additive manufacturing orthopedic devices. Our speaker is Chris Collins, Chief Operating Officer at Tangible Solutions. Tangible Solutions is the premier contract manufacturer of 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants. Tangible offers end-to-end management of implant manufacturing and is committed to customer responsiveness and engagement, on-time delivery, and quality that exceeds expectations.
My presentation here is going to be over additive manufacturing for titanium medical devices, something that has been a hot topic in the past few years. And so Tangible Solutions only makes medical devices. So this is something that we are intimately familiar with. The only mode of business that we do is 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants. So that's 100% of our business. I wanted to start with an overview, give everyone the current state of the industry, what products are out there, what we see as low-hanging fruit for opportunity for new products that enter the market in terms of additive manufacturing, and kind of what we see out here, in the industry from the OEMs is really big growth in product development, growth in engineering skill sets and tools in the toolbox that they can use, some pretty serious growth in the segments that we're experienced in, spine, foot and ankle, some other extremities, fixation devices, and then also new and novel devices that don't really have another manufacturing method, but they've been come up with, or had some IP wrapped around them and then developed after the fact. Seen a lot of that come through now as well, very unique geometries, loading conditions and things like that. So we'll get into just a list of medical devices that, we see on a regular basis out in the wild. So in spine, those are all different types of cages, corpectomy, lumbar, cervical, all the various approaches for lumbar cages, corpectomy cages, SI as well. We kind of consider that, lump it into the spine category. The only real unique thing about that is that they're screws instead of a flat cage that only goes through compression. Foot and ankle seems to be running away with some of that spine technology for fusion products, plus using like lag screw technology as well in their industry. Total joint, everyone has seen, tip trays or acetabular shells that are 3D printed, the titanium side of the total joint, as well as I didn't list, but some shoulder replacement technology as well. Fixation devices, which is surprising to a lot of people. They don't think about it at first, but suture anchors or staples or standalone interbody cage screws or blocker screws for standalone, lots of different applications for fixation. Low-hanging fruit there being probably pedicle screws, where you can print multi-component device that articulates all in one, all at the same time, so long as your clearances and things like that are worked out. And then custom devices is something that's also heating up for us. And we see more and more, we have more and more demand for the custom devices that are, you could also say patient specific as well, or patient matched. You can hear those thrown out there as well. And trauma plates, CMF, foot and ankle, all of these things, specialty applications as well. So one of the slides that I wanted to include was just some demo parts that, we had a few anodized here and there, just giving examples of kind of complex geometry that we see being a primary mode of application in med device right now, that can vary from roughened surfaces to complex lattice structures that fluids and biologics can flow through or bones can grow through, that aids in fixation or aids in fusion. So lots of these applications going on, and we'll see some more of these parts later on as well. But to break down into a couple of categories of features that I'll say are typical in this generation of implants, will be the trabecular lattice, which is kind of like the coin term that everybody has started to use, to where basically they're trying to target a trabecular bone like mimicry, where rather than being the struts being aligned with the loading conditions of the bone, of the trabecular bone, it's more of a randomized pattern. So we'll see that be where we'll have random node positions in space inside of a volumetric boundary, like you see on the right there, as well as like target strut thicknesses, target pore sizes, since that's kind of what the literature, in the common theme throughout the industry has been lately. We also see lots of organized lattice as well. So that could be as simple as just some patterned cuts in one axis and then a different pattern of cuts in another axis, or any variation of kind of a pattern of struts or a pattern of cuts is very common right now for additive. And that has a lot to do with the level of education of and software tools available to the engineering teams. A lot of times, if there's no complex structure generation software tools available to the team, then the resort for the capability of the software and the capability of the engineer at that point is to kind of just pattern cuts and create more of a like organized, or I'll call it simpler geometry. But the same principles still apply. They're still targeting a strut thickness and targeting a pore size or an opening size for biologics or other things to travel through and grow onto, providing more surface area. And then I also just noted that the microscope picture on the left there is 150 microns thick for that particular strut size. Definitely one of the down in the small region of what is producible reliably by laser powder fusion. Some of the other things that I wanted to talk about were we're seeing a lot of changes on the design side, and that's really OEM controlled for the most part. We as a contract manufacturer sometimes can help with the generation of complex structures, or getting to a final design and being trained on any new software packages that the company may be acquiring to generate those complex structures. And if they're not, what's makeable, what's manufacturable, what's not, what are the common design recommendations? Design for additive manufacturing is something that everybody's talking about. This is more or less the larger scale implementation of that. Manufacturing side, a lot of engineers are becoming a lot more familiar with the manufacturing processes for medical devices. Generally, that falls into two categories: laser powder bed fusion or electron beam melting, E-beam. So we have qualities for both that are, ideal. Generally speaking, when you're looking at two different parts, you're talking about an E-beam part being rougher and larger. They build faster. That enables them to be a little bit cheaper, I think. And then laser powder bed fusion being the process that produces very, very fine resolutions, very close to the model. So we like to rely on model-based definition to fully define our products rather than like a process-based, like roughness or feature, where you have to rely on the process. Something else that I think the OEMs are learning is that quality can vary by vendor. Depends on how they do things internally, what kind of process they have validated, what their goals are in terms of like resolution versus speed, driving costs down, different motivators there to leverage the different technologies and different features for finished products. So another thing that OEMs are learning is the downstream processes are extremely important as well. So capabilities of the vendor to perform downstream processes like any milling, turning, machining, laser marking, cleaning, passivation, packaging, sterilization, and any of those downstream operations, all being under one roof, definitely helps the OEMs in their supply chain. To add to the point, give you a visual indicator of how part quality can vary by vendor. Not trying to toot our own horn too much, but we had been given permission to use this by one of our customers where they were prototyping a cervical interbody. They had their design locked down and then released a comparison chart for us to take a look at and review and let us know, here's what we see in terms of part quality. These are all laser powder bed fusion parts, but you can see based on the motivations of the company, varying factors fall into place here. Tangible's goal in particular is to create a part that is as close to the model-based definition of the product as possible, meaning that if something is modeled as a smooth surface, then it is now a smooth surface. It is not a process-based roughness that's been added to the part itself. It's not low resolution, creating like a fuzzy look, which could actually be artifacts that we'll talk about in a minute. It's to create almost as close to exactly what the model represents as the finished product. This is a microscope image of some struts in a complex lattice. So the first thing you'll notice is there are on the image on the left, there are lots of very small beads. Those will be stuck to the part upon removal of the laser powder bed fusion process or the E-beam process. The E-beam process actually requires more of a physical removal of the particles from lattice structures, whereas like in laser powder bed fusion, it does a better job of flowing out. But you still get these artifacts, which is partially sintered powder on the outside of the part. So this is actually that what creates that sandpaper feel or the roughness that your fingers can actually feel on the surface of the part. Generally speaking, when we're talking in medical, I hear it a lot. Rougher is better for bone growth and things like that. But I think that you can easily replicate the feeling of the roughness with a part that looks like the image on the right, where it's clean and free of debris. And you can actually recreate that roughness using software tools in model-based definition, which we'll see a demonstration of here in a minute as well. But Tangible in particular has a proprietary process that we use to ensure that we get the parts to the state on the right and they're free and clear of debris, and we aren't going to have any problems downstream or problems during testing where we have particulate leaving the part. Just another comparison between E-beam and laser powder bed fusion, where both of these are modeled, the struts are modeled as a smooth surface, and then those are put through the additive manufacturing process. As you can see, E-beam is kind of creating a process-based roughness, whereas you may not want that everywhere. And then the nose of that device is then machined or deburred or smoothed out in one manner or another downstream. Whereas laser powder bed fusion, this particular part we designed and made, and that's raw off the printer there. So just an example of process-based finishes of one process versus another that are both technically additive manufacturing. The next slide has to do with more complex lattice structures, whereas if the engineers aren't provided the tools to create these complex structures, then they're limited, very limited to something like a pattern of cuts, which can even bog down a very powerful CAD workstation and CAD software package, because it's doing the parametric calculations to then generate that pattern cut and rebuild the whole design tree in like a program like SolidWorks, where the modeling is parametric. Instead, in a mathematically based complex structure generation software, the rendering is very fast, even on super complex structures like these just demo lattice structures. Something else that's a huge beneficial capability of some of these mathematically based software packages is the ability to do finite elements. So this is just a quick example of a compression loading scenario for each of these particularly complex lattice structures, where if you try to import this into like a different finite elements package, it would probably either take forever to solve or just decide that it didn't want to and crash on you. So just a basic example, something very easy to do in some of these software packages. Another just basic capability that generally is provided in these very powerful complex structure software packages. This package that we use to generate these examples was Entopology platform, and so you can see the options here as well. Whereas, like if you're doing a pattern cut or something like that, you would get something more like you would on the left when you're trying to conform to a complex macro geometry. Then you'll get some of these lines or sharp corners that create disconnected struts or failure points, stress concentrations, or tiny bits of material that will then chip off later after you make the part. But you can use the same software package to completely conform to the macro geometry or the volumetric boundary that you provide, no matter what the shape is, and close all the struts and have a nice conformal geometry. This is just a short video kind of demonstrating that fact. This is a very complex lattice structure that the new bodies are just dragged and dropped. That was a cone. This one is a cube, and you can see it varies in different axes, X, Y, and Z. And then now we're going to move on to a more complex geometry. And this same lattice structure, since it's mathematically driven, is and field driven, then it can really conform to any geometry that we throw in there. And so that also enables, really cuts down on engineering like model generation time when you have a big SKU list or lots of sizes in your part family, where you can just drag and drop the body that you want the lattice structure to be in, and it'll conform to the different volumetric boundaries. Then you can export it rather easily. So topology optimization is something else that is enabled by some of these software packages. And so where we give loading conditions like general finite element analysis, and then get the resultant optimized topology that's calculated, and then you can actually influence that volume with a complex structure like the one showed. It's a little tough to see in the front view, but when you go over to the section view, you can see how the geometry has been focused in the same shape as the optimized topology, but it now has a complex structure influence element to it. So it's something that's also very powerful, mathematically driven, renders relatively quickly comparatively to like parametric modeling software. And this is an area where when the organization does support the engineering staff and goes ahead and acquires these new software packages that really help drive the hardware and drive the new technology that is additive manufacturing. Without these tools, you can't define your product in the model. So when the organization does support the engineering staff enough to acquire this new software package, we're seeing a little bit of a lack in allowed time to properly learn the software package as well. So some of the examples that we provided seem rather easy, but they can be very, very different in terms of actually modeling the geometry itself, because the software is math driven, and that can take a little bit of time to switch gears, maybe go back and brush up on your math a little bit, and then return to the drawing board and start to apply those mathematical principles to allow fields to drive your design rather than sketching a shape and extruding the cut or extruding the geometry, sweeping the geometry, sweeping the cuts very visually, and it turns into more of a mathematically driven thing as well. So we talked about complex structures. I gave you a short video on how they can conform to really any geometry or parametric volume, anything you want to drop into it. This is going to be on a video on digital roughness. And basically you can create as rough or as smooth of a surface in model-based definition and apply that to mask it from any surface you want, apply that to any surface you want. You can control the gradient using fields. You can, eventually you can see some of these floating bodies. Those will be eliminated when you mesh the actual model itself. You can get as rough and crazy as you want, or you can just add a little bit of texture, and that will be truly represented in the physical parts after manufacturing. So anything that you can model, we can make for the most part. There are obviously design for manufacturing challenges there. Something else that's very cool in enabling through additive manufacturing is, and combination of the software tools, is structural compliance. So something else that we've experimented with internally is just making a part like this. This is completely all made at one time. The part was made all at once, already assembled, and designed to be structurally compliant. And so you can see that, as we're testing that we're very successful, that this component is Ti 6.4, and we used finite elements, the combination of the tools that I talked about previously, to come to this solution as kind of a demonstration piece for med device. This is just another photo of driving home model-based definition. So we modeled various complex structures onto this sample hex, and so we effectively modeled a cut of our logo with some lattice inside of it. You can see on the right panel there, on the panel facing front, you can see a smooth surface with a rough surface on the other half of the panel, and that is clearly shown. If you even zoom in a little bit more, you can see the max heights and the min heights of the roughness itself is positionally exactly the same as it is on the model and the physical part. So that peak in space is exactly where it needs to be, where it's been designed to be in the model, is also represented in the physical part, which is something that if you're relying on process-based roughnesses or complex surfaces, than like a Tide plasma spray or something to that effect, then you won't have the same peak at the same spot space relative to the part geometry. So it's those types of things that we can start to think about intelligently implementing into our engineering designs. It's beneficial to the OEMs as an organization because there's more opportunity for IP, there's more opportunity for research to enhance patient outcomes, there's more opportunity to truly create a very, very unique device that functions in a very, very intentional way. So you can see other examples of that roughness, like up on the very top of the part. You can see the split, one surface is smooth, one surface is rough. You can see the lattice structures, on the other sides as well, patterned cuts, organized lattice, randomized lattice. Lots of different applications on this particular sample part. And these are the sample parts that we tend to send out as kind of example to drive home this model-based definition idea. Again, same thing, model-based definition. This is just leveraging the complex lattice generation plus rough surface or like digital noise, digital roughness, we've called it as well, in applying that to the basic geometry of a lateral lumbar interbody fusion cage. So for this, we just took the generic shape of a lateral, applied a lattice to the inside of the body, and then on the outside end plates or the bony contacting surfaces, we put a lot of digital noise slash lattice onto the end plates as well, and then represented that in a physical part, which is what you see on the right. A couple more examples. We've got an A-lift cage on the left with a gyroid lattice. So gyroid is a wave in all three axes, so X, Y, and Z. And then we filled the cage with that lattice through the end plates, had some teeth on the end plates, got a couple of instrument features there, and just a basic geometry to give everyone an idea of some of the possibilities in cages, as opposed to kind of the patterned or mathematically driven lattice structure that you can kind of see the organization in. On the right, we've got a couple of cervical cages that have the trabecular or randomized pattern in two different versions, really. So these are cervical cages. They're very small. One is kind of the trabecular bone lattice, where we're mimicking trabecular bone. And then the same thing as the previous slide, we've added roughness to the end plates, the bony contacting surfaces. And then the one below that is still trabecular, but it actually conforms to the end plate geometry of the model previously. And then there's an organized patterned like lattice cut in the lateral windows. So again, just more demo examples to kind of get the wheels turning on this model-based definition idea for additive manufacturing. And this is our contact information. Just email for Tangible. And I'm Chris Collins. I'm the COO and founded the company in 2013. So all of our contact information is here. And get a hold of us if you need anything.
Thank you to Chris, and thank you to those watching. You can learn more about Tangible Solutions at tangiblesolutions3d.com or connect with them by using the link on the webinar session page. To access more from OMTEC's virtual education series, visit omtechexpo.com.